Friends, in this episode of our popular awareness series, we are going to talk about a global phenomenon which has also affected South Asia, West Asia and India in particular, and that is terrorism. This word terrorism and the phenomenon related to terrorism came more into prominence after 9/11/2001. We all recall that on 9/11/2001, two aeroplanes came, hit the World Trade Center buildings in New York. The buildings came down, and with that, the nearly 3,000 people got killed. These 3,000 people who got killed, they were belonging to most of the religions, most of the countries, and they were most importantly the innocent people. Since that time, the phenomenon of terrorism has become very important, very well known. Now, as such, after that event, one particular phrase was coined by American media, and that phrase was a word, Islamic terrorism. It tried to combine two words, on one hand religion, on the other hand terrorism. I must tell you that terrorism is not a recent phenomenon. Many political groups have resorted to terrorism in the history. In last 200 years, 300 years, there are records of people resorting to this phenomenon all over the world. But not so far terrorism was related to religion. Probably after 9/11, it is the first time that terrorism is being related to a particular religion, and that is Islam. And since then, a popular thing came up. People started saying that all Muslims are not terrorists, but all terrorists are Muslims. Now, this formulation is very catchy. People picked it up, and this has been used by investigating agencies in investigating the acts of terror, attributing most of the acts of terror to Muslims. But first, I must point out that people from different religions have resorted to terrorism for their goals. Of course, these goals have nothing to do with religion. These goals are primarily the political goals. First, I will just do a brief listing of different acts in which people of different religions were involved. I hope you all recall that father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, was killed by Nathuram Godse, a Hindu. Then we know that in 1984, the Prime Minister of India, Indira Gandhi, was done to death by two Khalistani militants or terrorists who were her bodyguards also. Later, in 1991, Rajiv Gandhi, who was the ex-Prime Minister of India, he was also killed by one activist of LTTA, Liberation Tiger of Tamil Eelam activist called Dhanu, and she had of course worn a plastic bomb. Her friends were arrested and they were put to jail behind the bars. Now, so these are some of the examples. Two more examples I like to add. In 1958, a Buddhist monk killed the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, Bandar Naike. Now, similarly, another act of terror took place in Norway, in which a Christian young man, Anders Berling Breivik, killed nearly 86 young people with his machine gun. Now, so obviously, terrorists have come from different religions also, but not because of religion. Some major examples I'll give you. Irish Republican Army, which was there in Great Britain, it kept fighting for the freedom of Ireland, and its major vehicle was terror. Similarly, in our Indian Northeast, Bodos and others, Ulfa people, also resorted to terrorism. Now, there is a story of Timothy McVeigh and somebody bombing a hotel in Cairo in 1942. So, in sum and substance, terrorism has been there, but it is aimed at some political goal, and that's why, of course, so far even United Nations has not been able to give a proper definition of terrorism. What has defined is act of terror, And in act of terror, obviously, what is said, by and large, one can say it is an act of terror in which the innocent people get killed because of the designs of some particular person. Now, so this is on one hand. Now, on the other hand, we see that the contemporary phenomenon, which is labeled as Islamic terrorism, which is also labeled as jihadi terrorism, etc., etc. Obviously, these terminologies are purely motivated by political goals. But if we see a broad profile, Islam and terrorism, the first point, let's recall that the biggest Muslim country with maximum Muslim population is Indonesia. But in Indonesia, we do not see such acts of terror. Number two, if we see the maximum acts of terror and terror-related violence have taken place in West Asia, Central Asia, around Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and that particular whole area. This has been the area where maximum number of people have been killed because of acts of terror. Now, if we examine this area, properly, we'll come to notice three major things prevalent in this area. What is first one? This area has majority Muslim population. Number two, it has vast amount of oil. And number three, in the same area, terrorism is there in the biggest number. So, a rough common sense, if you want to ask, in this area there are Muslims, there is oil, and there is terrorism. So this terrorism is because of Muslims and Islam, or is it there to control the oil? So obviously the commonsensical question will come that it is there to control the oil. So how did this phenomenon, which is broadly labeled as Islamic terrorism, jihadi terrorism, which gets initiation in the global scene with Al-Qaeda and then later on the formation of Islamic State, if we want to understand, we will come to know that it is basically because of the training of some mujahideen into Taliban, converting and forming Al-Qaeda in Pakistani madrasas. Now this is a strange game. Now what happened during the Cold War era, we all know that there were two superpowers. What were these two superpowers? One was United States of America and another was Soviet Russia. And there was a global rivalry for domination in these two countries. Now, during this period, there are some people in Afghanistan who wanted to have communist rule, who wanted to have land reforms, and who wanted to end the feudal system in Afghanistan. They invited Russian army. Russian army came and it occupied Afghanistan. Now, whatever be their motives, whatever be their goals, now it was an international policy blunder. Another country's army occupying the country becomes a sort of a big global issue. Now, so that time America wanted to attack Russian army. America wanted to counter the effect of Russia. Obviously, both these countries were trying to have their hegemony in the area which is rich of oil resources. Obviously their methods were different, political ideologies were different, etc., etc., that apart. But here what mattered? America, which wanted to counter this Russian aggression, which wanted to counter Russia's occupation of Afghanistan. Now it was at one level helpless. As such, if we see, America has attacked nearly 20-25 countries after the Second World War. But at this particular point of time, when Afghanistan was being occupied by Russian army, American army was quite demoralized. Why was it demoralized? It was demoralized because Vietnam people defeated American army when American army attacked Vietnam, when Vietnam was trying to go towards its national liberation, when Vietnam was trying to go out of the French colonial powers. That time, in order to retain the colonial powers of the French, America attacked Vietnam. Vietnamese people defeated American army. American army was demoralized. So because of that, America could not send its army. So what to do? American brains came together, and they thought that we will fight our battle in Afghanistan through the Asia's Muslim youth. So how to make the Asian Muslim youth fight the Russian army? What they did, they promoted the fundamentalist version of Islam. They promoted those groups which were very fundamentalist, which were very orthodox, etc., etc. in Islam. And here they developed a syllabus in Washington. Now this syllabus in Washington, which was developed with the help of Salafi version of Islam, which was prevalent in Saudi Arabia. It was the brainwashing of the Muslim youth was done in few madrasas of Pakistan. Now it is wrong to say that madrasas give the training of terrorism. Obviously, few madrasas were chosen to give this brainwashing indoctrination to the Muslim youth. And third, America totally funded the project. Now in this brainwashing, they went through 5 stages, and they distorted mainly 2 major words which are there in Islamic tradition. Now they trained these Muslim youth that this Afghanistan is being occupied by communists. These communists don't believe in your Allah. Because they don't believe in your Allah, they are kafirs, and killing the kafirs is what jihad is all about. I must tell that kafir is a word for the one who hides the truth. This is the original meaning in Quran. Similarly, jihad is a word where you are fighting against the evil tendencies. But here this was combined very shrewdly, very cleverly by the syllabus makers in Washington, and they brainwashed the youth that communists, or for that matter, anybody who disagrees with your version, anybody who disagrees with your understanding of Islam is a kafir. Killing the kafir is jihad. And even if you get killed in jihad, don't worry, because you will be going straight to Allah, where you will be going straight to Allah in Jannat, where for each jihadi 72 virgins are waiting. Now this was such a big trap of the mind, trap of the brainwashing, that many Muslim youth came forward, took this training, and from these students came up this Mujahideen, Taliban, and Al-Qaeda was formed. I must tell you that based on the CIA papers, Mahmoud Mamdani in his book Good Muslim, Bad Muslim tells us that America spent $8,000 million and gave 7,000 tons of armaments, including the latest ballistic missiles, etc., etc., to the Al-Qaeda. Now, having this at their command, this Al-Qaeda joined anti-Russian forces in Afghanistan. Russian forces was defeated, and once Russian forces were defeated, that Al-Qaeda came to occupy Afghanistan, and America was overseeing the whole operation. Now this, what I am telling you, is based on couple of books. One is, of course, as I said, Mahmoud Mamdani's book Good Muslim, Bad Muslim. Second is Tariq Ali's book Clash of Fundamentalism, and other articles which came in the papers from time to time. Now this Al-Qaeda, later on, of course, the whole in the West Asia, America wanted to have great control. So we all recall, I will not go into details of that, how America attacked Afghanistan on the pretext of catching hold of Bin Laden. But Bin Laden, of course, was not caught. Instead, 60,000 innocent Afghanis were killed. Now later on, America went on to attack Iraq on some trivial reason, and Iraqi army, some elements of Iraqi army later on picked up the same Al-Qaeda ideology, and it went on to become ISIS. Now today, of course, now once the brainwash is done, it is like changing the person forever, and it is the outcome of this basic training that today Al-Qaeda elements, terrorist elements who are being called jihadi elements, have been scattered mainly in West Asia and South Asia. You will be surprised to know that the number of people getting killed because of this terrorism are much more in Pakistan than in India or than in any other country. So it is something like Frankenstein's monster. In Pakistani madrasas, this was created, and it was Pakistan which came out to be the biggest victim of this terror attack. And this one must remind that in Pakistan nearly 70,000 people got killed, including the ex-Prime Minister of Pakistan, Benazir Bhutto. So this is as far as what is being labeled as Islamic terrorism, in the name of which a global Islamophobia, hatred for Muslims all over the world was spread. And today we are standing at a time when nearly 56 countries who are Muslim majority countries, many of them have been labeled where the Muslims are looked down as being some sort of terrorists, etc., etc. Of course, one must concede that this phenomenon did come up in the history, and there have been some Muslims who have been there, but obviously this was best told to us by none other than Hillary Clinton, who was once the Vice President of America, and later on, of course, she contested the presidential election against Donald Trump and lost. In a video available on the webs, she tells us that America wanted to fight against the Russians, and it propped up this Al-Qaeda. Its job was done, and it washed its hands off. This video is still available on the net. Now on this side, this is one aspect of terrorism which we need to understand. We must say that after 9/11, Osama bin Laden issued a video in which he said that because of this Twin Tower attack, he is feeling very happy. He thanked Allah, and he said that more such acts should be repeated. Now I want to ask, does any religion teach to kill innocent people? The answer will be no. Does Islam teach to kill innocent people? The answer is again no. And as far as Islam is concerned, since Islam is being targeted, I like to quote one verse from Quran, and that is Surah 5, Ayat 32, 5.32. What does it say? It says that even if you kill a single innocent person, that is like killing the whole humanity. Of course, this Al-Qaeda elements later on were of course propped up and taken support by some of the elements from the Pakistani army. And this Pakistani army occasionally used Al-Qaeda, even Al-Qaeda elements and such type of terror tactics even in India. The worst example of that was of course 26th November 2008, when a group of young terrorists landed up in Mumbai, and they let out a mayhem in which nearly 200 people got killed. Now there is another aspect to this 26/11 attack, and that another aspect is that not only that innocent people were killed, not only that these elements who came from Pakistan, they unleashed the death dance, but in the same attack, one of India's very committed police officer, Hemant Karkare, was also killed. Now I will shortly come to this Hemant Karkare, because Hemant Karkare till that time was investigating the acts of terror in which many people associated with Bajrang Dal and other organizations related to Hindu nationalism were involved. Because in India we saw starting from April 2006. In April 2006, in Nanded, in one RSS worker Raj Kondawar's house, where the Bajrang Dal flag was being hoisted, two young boys who were members of Bajrang Dal, they got killed while making a bomb. This bomb was to be used in some big mosque shortly. They also found there that there was a pajama kurta, the beard, the dress which generally Muslim youth wear, were also found in the house of Mr. Raj Kundawar, a RSS associated person. Not only this, in India we also witnessed the acts of terror in Makkah, where in Makkah Masjid blast many people were killed. Then in Malegaon, twice major acts of terror took place. In Ajmer, a act of terror took place. In Samjhauta Express also act of terror took place. Now these were acts which were being investigated by Hemant Karkare, and he came across a motorcycle of Sadhvi Pragya Singh Thakur, who is an ex-worker of ABVP and who is currently a member of Lok Sabha. She is out on the bail on the charges of being part of the Malegaon blast. Not only Pragya Singh Thakur, there were other people also, the Lieutenant Colonel Purohit, then retired Colonel Upadhyay, then Swami Asimanand, etc., etc., all were involved. So some of them, these activities were loosely called as Hindutva terror. Now here one must distinguish between Hindu terror and Hindutva terror. So Hindutva terror means it has nothing to do with Hinduism. It is a political agenda of some people who, like Swami Asimanand in his confession in front of a magistrate, he gave the whole story. Later on he backed out and he said that I gave it under pressure. Now I don't know how it was accepted, but when Swami Asimanand gave the confession in front of a magistrate, that was legally valid. And Swamiji in his confession said that after this Sankat Mochan terror attack, they decided that they will also form terror group, bomb making factory, suicide squads, and they did target the mosque at the time when maximum number of people congregate there for their prayers. So of course now later on, once in 2014 Modi government came to power, after that these cases have been handled with kid gloves. They have been handled softly. One example I'll give you is that of the Mumbai court public prosecutor Rohini Salian. Rohini Salian, who was fighting these cases against terrorists of the variety of Pragya Singh Thakur and Asimanand, Rohini Salian was sent a message by somebody from the top saying that she should go soft on these cases of terror, and of course she stuck to her statement. She believes in that statement, and probably much of the legalities, but after that many of them started getting bails, many of them were released, and even Sadhvi Pragya Singh Thakur is currently on bail as far as the cases involved of Malegaon blast are concerned. So friends, in sum and substance, I'll say that it is very tragic that a phenomenon like terrorism has been associated with religion, that too particularly Islam. Neither Islam nor Hinduism nor Christianity nor Buddhism permit the killing of innocent people, which is a central hallmark of terrorist acts. And in terrorist acts also, most of the people are guided by a political agenda. They are guided by a political agenda, and sometimes terrorists are also coming from the stock, from the communities which feel that they are very that injustice is being done to them. Injustice is being done to them, so as a matter of revenge, some of them also recourse to terrorism. Today, terrorism has become like a cancer, and one hopes that these seeds of cancer which were planted by America to control the West Asian oil, one hopes that this comes to an end and human society can breathe more easily away from these attacks of terror. Thank you very much.